Should we abolish the IRS? And does Donald Trump like the IRS just the way it is? Well, let's ask him. Donald joins us. Nice to see you, Donald.
Hello, Greta.
All right, Donald, how do you like the IRS? Are they just fine as it is, or do you agree with Senator Cruz?
Well, you know, there are a lot of different people and a lot of different ideas, and some are good and some are bad. But the tax code, at a minimum, should be made a lot simpler. As far as abolishing the IRS, that's a very, very big move, and it could be a dangerous move, frankly. And a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways, they've done a very good job over the years. But the fact is that to abolish it, you're talking about an entirely different tax and an entirely different tax code, and that can be dangerous.
All right. How much does the IRS targeting scandal really matter to American people, other than those who are specifically targeted, who are very unhappy, as they should be?
Well, you know, it's been amazing. I thought when I heard the big three, right, you had the AP scandal, and you had Benghazi, and I really thought that now Benghazi was horrible because of the deaths of the ambassador and the other people, and it was a terrible thing. Terrible. I mean, you really would have to say because of that the worst. But with Benghazi and AP and then the IRS, I really thought the IRS was going to resonate by far the most, and it was resonating the most until about 4 or 5 days ago. And now, other than you, Greta, it doesn't seem like people are talking about it so much, and it is fading. And I would say this, that, you know, you talk about Teflon. The president is really, it's an amazing phenomenon. It just doesn't seem to be resonating like it did a couple of weeks ago. When this first came out, that was the biggest story, and this was the biggest, you know, they talk about the scandals. This was the biggest scandal, and all of a sudden it does not seem to be resonating anymore. Do you see that too?
I think, you know, there's a lot that for American people to talk about in terms of the recent NSA as well as the Benghazi. So I think there's a lot on the plate of the American people. Plus, you've got the problem with the economy still very sluggish. But I'm curious, why do you think that the IRS has not resonated? I'll throw it back to you.
It just seems it. And I'm not talking about at the beginning. At the beginning, it was a massive point of discussion, and a lot of people were very upset in both parties, and, you know, as they should be. But over the last 3 or 4 days, I noticed that it's not really being talked about by, as you would say, the liberal media or the NBCs and the ABCs and the CBSs. They're not talking about it. And I am a little bit surprised. It seems to be going away like so many other things seem to go away.
How do you grade Congress and its oversight of the IRS and the president in his response to this IRS scandal?
Well, I mean, they're making a response. It's a strong response, but again, the issue is not the same issue that we had 2 weeks ago, Greta, and I think you know that as well as anybody. Now, you're talking about it, and Sean Hannity's talking about it, and Bill is talking about it, but a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people that were really incensed at it, they've given up the issue, and I'm surprised they've given it up.
Which matters more to you when you have a discussion around the dinner table with friends? I mean, which has got a more heightened concern, the NSA discussion or the IRS or even Benghazi at this point, or the journalists?
Well, look, these are all big. I mean, Benghazi is so terrible with what happened to the ambassador. And it's not only the death, but, you know, there are stories coming out about the way he died, just like nobody, this should never be allowed to happen. And, you know, the biggest problem I have with Benghazi is the fact that there's been no retribution. We know the people that did it. There's been no retribution. How do you allow this to happen? So Benghazi, to me, is something that's really very, very, really beyond anything, very disgraceful, the way it's been handled. But I would say this, the IRS scandal, I would say, should be the biggest, and it's not. The other is a real mess, because you really talk about national security. Is it national security? Is it not national security? Who wants to have people looking into every time you make a call? Who's listening? It is a really big scandal, and I look at the factory, virtually, you could call it, that they're building. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, the buildings that they built for this, I've never seen anything. Now, if it's a matter of national security, Greta, that's a very important thing. But it can't be, not to this extent.
Does the president seem engaged in terms of addressing these, or should he even be engaged? Are these scandals that aren't sort of his problem?
Well, he doesn't seem to be overly engaged, and they don't seem to really, you know, they just happen one after another. I've never seen anything. I've never seen so much stuff. We've all seen scandals, and we've seen some beauties, but I've never seen so many happen at one time. And in a way, you know, having this many, somebody said this is what they want. because nobody focuses on anything, or nobody focuses on the one that really would resonate the best. So, a lot of people are thinking it was done that way on purpose. I don't happen to believe that way. I will say this. You have a tremendous number of bad things happening in this country right now, Greta. Tremendous. Call them scandals, and that's what they are. They're all happening at once, and people aren't focusing.
And why not?
You'll have to answer that question, Greta. You're trying to get them to focus, but the fact is that, like as an example, the AP, that was such a big deal. And the liberal media really hated that more than anybody, and that almost got them going on other things, but now they've calmed down, and everything seems to be just hokey-dory on that one. So it's amazing that this kind of stuff, that these scandals, they just don't seem to last for a very long period of time. When you have 161 people going over to the White House, when you have 161 visits from the commissioner, that's to me like amazing. And you have and you have the Secretary of Defense going there 15 times or 20 times. I mean, that to me is amazing. But Greta, it's not resonating.
Donald, always nice to talk to you.
Okay, thank you.